They didn't question her past, didn't question the way she moved. They only questioned one thing: why she moved faster to protect the dog than herself. She was just a vet now. No rank, no unit, no chain of command. But when the gun came up and that dog's life was on the line, she acted like someone who'd done it before. She took the shot, saved the dog, bled out on a diner floor with no ID, no uniform, and no one left who remembered her name. Or so she thought, because when the footage hit the right inbox, 24 hours later, an entire battalion of Navy SEALs, men she used to serve alongside, they showed up, in full dress, no announcement, no salute returned, because the dog she saved wasn't just a K9. He was a Tier 1 asset with a buried file. And she wasn't as retired as she thought. So before we show you what happened when they came for her next, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Then hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because this time, they weren't coming to punish her. They were coming to bring her back in. Dr. Erin Mercer wasn't what most people pictured when they thought small-town vet. There was nothing soft about her, nothing chatty. She didn't keep candy at the front desk or hang holiday garlands around the reception area. She didn't go to book club, didn't do coffee dates, didn't attend town council meetings unless there was a zoning issue that directly affected her clinic. People respected her, trusted her, some even liked her in that quiet way you come to rely on someone without ever really knowing them. But no one, not even the staff she worked with every day, could say they knew much about her life beyond the clinic. She drove a 10-year-old pickup with a cracked dash and mud-crusted tires, always parked it facing outward, always kept the keys clipped to her belt loop on a carabiner that had seen better days. Her office had no personal photos, no framed degrees, no plaques, just shelves of dog-eared reference manuals and 2 stacked trauma kits, one for animals, one technically for people. They assumed the second kit was in case a client got bit or fainted during a tough surgery. But Erin had never said, and nobody asked. That morning, a call came in at 6:42 a.m. Lab mix hit by a car on the highway outside Swansboro. Owner in a panic. Erin didn't wait for the on-call tech. She pulled on her boots, zipped up a fleece with Mercer Animal Health stitched in plain black thread, and hit the road in under 5 minutes. By the time they got the dog on the table, it was already shocky, panting hard, eyes glassy, flanks swelling fast, pelvic fracture, internal bleed, road grit caked into every wound. The vet tech hesitated, reaching for the sedation tray. "Not yet," Erin said, her voice flat but precise. "Stabilize first. Bolus, let's go." The tech moved. Erin's hands were already on the IV line. She didn't blink. Not when the blood flow surged, not when the heart rate fluttered, not when they had to aspirate fluid from the chest with a 20-gauge needle while the dog was still semi-conscious. She moved like someone solving a familiar puzzle, fast, practiced, emotionless. The dog survived, barely. Afterward, while the staff buzzed about calling the owners and prepping post-op meds, Erin stepped into the back lot, stood alone under the overhang, watching clouds roll low over the tree line. Her right hand rubbed absently at her left thigh, just above the knee, where scar tissue still flared if she stood too long. The ache never really went away. She just ignored it better than most people could. That was her way. Quiet. Compartmentalized. Not cold exactly, but careful. Always careful. She had chosen animals because they didn't demand explanations. They didn't ask why you flinched at sudden noise. They didn't prod about old injuries or press about what branch you served in or what you did before you opened a vet clinic 2 miles from Camp Lejeune's back fence. They just let you do your job. And Erin Mercer was very, very good at her job. The paperwork was vague from the start. The crate showed up unannounced on a rainy Thursday morning, wheeled in by a contractor wearing a private logistics badge and a beard that said, "Not my problem." He didn't offer his name, didn't make small talk, just handed Erin a manila envelope marked "Transfer Non-Duty Final" and nodded once toward the dog inside. Belgian Malinois, male, 4 to 6 years, no name listed, just a 4-digit ID number and a line that read, "Behavioral mismatch, former working dog, Handler injury, transferred per protocol. The crate was spotless, military-grade construction, double latch, ventilation ports shaped like they were designed for aerial transport, not ground delivery. Aaron crouched down. The dog inside didn't growl, didn't bark, just stared back at her with still, intelligent eyes that tracked her movement without shifting its posture, alert but not reactive. She stood. And this came from where? The contractor shrugged. North Sector, all I know. My job's just drop off. You're on the list. He handed her a clipboard. Sign here if you're taking custody for observation. Aaron scanned the form. What agency? Didn't say. They all use the same channel these days. She didn't like it. Too quiet, too clean, but protocol was protocol. She initialed the bottom line. Took the leash and crate. The dog never made a sound. Inside the exam bay, she moved slowly, carefully. Let the dog out. Watched how he stepped. Not rushed, not hesitant. Every move measured. When he turned, he didn't scan the room, like a pet sniffing for food. He cleared corners, moved in a half circle around her as if confirming sightlines. Aaron stood still. The dog stopped 3 feet away, sat on command she never gave. She frowned. Okay. He responded to basic cues. Sit down, stay, but not like a civilian-trained dog. No delay, no wag, just execution. She tried a few oddball tests. Simulated distraction, fake stumble, sudden whistle. He didn't flinch. His eyes tracked everything, but he didn't move unless prompted. When her lead tech, Jenna, opened the back hallway door an hour later, the dog stepped between them, quiet and low. No snarl, just positioning. Not aggressive, protective, automatic. Aaron's voice was calm. Out, she said, and the dog eased back to her side like he'd done it 1,000 times. Jenna stared. Is he ours? Temporary intake, unclear origin. Did they give you his name? Aaron looked down at him. Thought for a second. He looks like a Rex. Big name for a quiet guy. Aaron nodded, then clipped the leash to her belt. I'm keeping him overnight. For observation? Behavioral eval. Paperwork's muddy. Truth was, she didn't trust it. Something about the dog didn't add up. His posture was too squared. His response times too clean. He smelled of sterilized crates and old sand. Not mud, not backyard mulch. His body was lean, muscled, hardened in a way no kennel could explain. That night, she locked up the clinic and let Rex settle on a blanket near the foot of her couch. He didn't whine, didn't pace, just watched the door. Later, when thunder rolled through the Carolina hills, he didn't flinch. He was waiting. And Aaron Mercer, though she wouldn't admit it, was watching him just as closely. Maggie's diner sat on the edge of a forgotten service road outside Swansboro, tucked between a defunct boat repair shop and a shuttered gas station. It had been there longer than the freeway, longer than the chain restaurants, longer than most of the town's memory. The booths were cracked red vinyl, the floor black and white tile faded to gray. The neon sign in the window said, "Open," even when it flickered like it wasn't sure. But the coffee was strong, the bacon was crisp, and nobody asked too many questions, which was why Aaron kept coming back. She pushed through the door just after 3 p.m. The lunch rush had faded. The dinner crowd, mostly long-haul truckers and tired locals, wouldn't roll in for another hour. Maggie Sullivan looked up from the register and gave a nod. 60-something, silver hair in a braid, hands like tree bark from 4 decades of wiping down counters. She didn't smile much, but when she did, it counted. Afternoon, Doc. Hey, Maggie. The bell above the door jingled a second time as the dog followed Aaron in. Rex moved close at her side, his pace perfectly matched. No leash, no commands. Maggie raised an eyebrow. You opening a new line of patients? Just evaluating, Aaron said, settling into her usual booth, second from the back, left wall, clear view of both exits. He's a temp. Name's Rex. The dog sat beside the table, tucked under it in a way that was almost too disciplined to ignore. Maggie didn't comment on the obedience, just poured a mug of coffee black and set it down without another word. At the far end of the counter, old Frank Weller, hunched over a newspaper, Vietnam vet, Purple Heart, had once told Aaron exactly 3 words in 5 years of shared silence. "You served too." She hadn't answered then. She wouldn't now. Beth, the evening waitress, came over with a notepad. Late 30s. Good at pretending she didn't notice things. "Burger?" she asked. Aaron nodded. "No onions." Beth turned to go, then looked down at Rex. "Well, aren't you just the quietest date she's ever brought in?" Aaron smirked. "He doesn't talk much." Beth winked. "That's how we like him." When the food arrived, Aaron didn't touch it at first. She sat with the coffee in both hands, letting the heat warm her fingers. Rex didn't beg, didn't whine. Just rested at her feet, eyes half-lidded, still tracking the room behind the stillness. A couple entered. Teenagers. Loud. Rex didn't twitch. When someone dropped a spoon behind the counter, he didn't even lift his head. But when the front door opened again and a man stepped in with too much weight in his shoulders and too little awareness in his eyes, Rex straightened. Just slightly. Eyes sharp. Aaron gave the softest correction. "Down." He obeyed. Instantly. That was the moment Maggie finally said something. "Don't know where he came from," she said, refilling Aaron's mug. "But he ain't regular." "Neither am I," Aaron replied. Maggie nodded once. "No, you're not." No more was said. Outside, the sun dipped behind a bank of clouds, and the light through the window turned to amber. Aaron leaned back, dog beneath her table, one hand resting unconsciously near his head. In that moment, the coffee warm, the air calm, the exits visible, the silence easy, Aaron Mercer allowed herself to breathe. She didn't know that in less than 15 minutes, someone was going to pull a gun. The bell above the door jingled again at 3:19 p.m. 3 men stepped inside. Maggie glanced up from the counter, her fingers still wrapped around a coffee pot. The first guy through the door was tall, mid-30s, military haircut, faded into civilian scruff. His boots were clean, too clean. His eyes swept the room like he'd done it before, like he knew where the exits were without looking. Behind him came a wiry guy in a hoodie, nervous energy, pale, eyes darting like he was looking for someone to tell him it was okay to bail. His hands didn't stop moving. The third was younger, maybe 20, twitchy, laughing at something no one said, with a wide, cracked smile that didn't match the fear in his pupils. Aaron didn't move, but her eyes lifted above her coffee. One look. That was all it took. Rex stirred under the table. "Stay," she murmured, voice low, steady. The first man, the one with the military gait, stepped forward, eyes hard. "Phones on the counter, wallets, keys, now." His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the diner like a gunshot. Maggie froze mid-step. Beth gasped. Frank Weller dropped his newspaper in silence. The twitchy one, hoodie guy, fumbled with his waistband, pulled a small pistol, hands shaking like he hadn't decided whether to use it or drop it. His fingers hovered way too close to the trigger. "Now," the leader barked, sharper. That was when the third guy, the laughing one, yanked a sawed-off shotgun from under his coat and waved it around like it was part of a music video. "Let's go, let's go! Empty the expletive register, lady." Beth backed up. Maggie didn't move. Rex's ears pinned back. His body tensed. "Rex," Aaron said again, firm, grounding. "Stay." The leader turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing as he spotted the dog. "What the hell is that?" The twitchy one followed his gaze. Is that a expletive cop dog?" "No," Aaron said, but she said it too fast. The nervous guy stepped back, panic starting to override instruction. The shotgun swung wide, careless. "That thing's trained. Look at it. It's not normal. Look how it's sitting." "He's a vet dog," Aaron said, tone calm, like she was giving bad news about someone's golden retriever. Retired. Medical eval. The leader didn't buy it. He stepped toward her booth, the sidearm in his hand lowered, slightly, but his attention didn't. You move! The dog moves! I shoot you both! Aaron didn't blink. Not necessary. You've got what you want. Don't escalate. She was speaking in a voice meant for trauma patients and aggressive animals. Slow, low, even. But she wasn't looking at the gun. She was watching hands, stances, peripheral positions, calculating, always calculating. She saw how Maggie's hand crept toward the panic button under the counter. She saw Beth trembling, trying not to scream. She saw Rex, unmoving, but wound like a coil under her boots. And she saw the nervous one's finger twitch, too close, too tight, too scared. She knew what came next before it happened. The sound of a fork hitting the floor near the kitchen broke the moment. A simple clatter. Accidental. The twitchy one jumped, and Aaron Mercer knew the next shot wouldn't miss. The gun went off before anyone could shout. The sound cracked through the diner, sharp and violent, shattering the stillness like glass. Aaron saw the muzzle flash at the same instant she saw the nervous robber's eyes widen in horror at what he'd just done. But the barrel wasn't pointed at her. It was pointed down, at Rex. The dog's head snapped up, muscles already firing, body about to launch. Not in fear, but in execution. Aaron felt it more than saw it. The shift from restraint to action, the second before instinct took over. She moved without thinking. Her chair slammed backward as she stepped into the space between the gun and the dog, twisting just enough to cover him fully. She didn't dive, didn't hesitate. She simply placed herself where the bullet was going. The impact hit her like a sledgehammer. Pain detonated through her left thigh, white hot and immediate, stealing her breath and buckling her legs. She went down hard, shoulder striking tile, coffee mug shattering beside her. Warmth spread fast, too fast, soaking through denim, pooling beneath her. The smell of cordite mixed with blood. Aaron didn't scream. She sucked in a breath through clenched teeth and rolled instinctively, dragging herself over Rex, arms wrapping around his shoulders, pinning him to the floor with her weight. Down, she said, voice low, absolute. Stay. Rex trembled under her, every muscle screaming to engage. His teeth were bared now, a silent snarl vibrating through his chest. Aaron felt it against her ribs, the power she was holding back with nothing but pressure and command presence. The leader swore loudly. What the hell? Move! The chaos guy shouted, shotgun swinging wildly. Aaron ignored them. Her hands went to her leg automatically. She pressed hard, fingers slick instantly. The pain was secondary now, pushed aside by something older and colder. Femoral hit, bleeding heavy, shock imminent, not good. She shifted her weight just enough to keep pressure on the wound without letting Rex free. Her vision tunneled at the edges, but she forced herself to stay focused. Rex, she whispered, breath steady despite the fire ripping through her body. Hold! The word mattered. The dog froze. Every ounce of violence coiled tight, waiting. Around them, chaos erupted. Chairs scraped. Someone screamed. Maggie shouted something Aaron didn't catch. The nervous robber staggered backward, pale and shaking, staring at Aaron like he hadn't meant to do this, like it was already too late to take it back. Blood kept coming. Aaron tasted copper at the back of her throat. But Rex was alive, and as long as he stayed alive, Aaron Mercer wasn't done yet. Rex didn't bark. He moved. The instant Aaron hit the floor and her voice, raw and urgent, delivered the command, something behind the dog's eyes shifted. Every ounce of coiled restraint snapped loose with terrifying precision. He launched out from under the table like a missile. The twitchy gunman didn't even react in time. Rex hit him low, full force, jaws clamping down on the man's forearm, just as the pistol fired again, wild and harmless into the floor. The impact took them both down hard, the gun clattering across the tile. The leader swore. What the? His weapon turned, toward the dog, toward Aaron, toward anything he could get a clean shot on. But Rex was already moving again. He disengaged, bounded toward the chaos unfolding at the front of the diner. The third guy, the one with the shotgun, was yelling, waving the barrel at everyone and no one, caught off guard by the way everything had gone sideways in 3 seconds flat. Rex didn't go for the throat, he didn't maul. He circled, pushed the threat back, herded the Chaos Man away from the booths, forcing him to trip over a fallen chair. The shotgun slammed into the edge of the counter and discharged harmlessly into a booth cushion, sending up stuffing and sparks. That was enough to break the spell. Frank Weller, 74 years old and half a century removed from his war, stood up from his stool with a grunt and flung his ceramic coffee mug at the nervous gunman. It struck him square on the temple. The man yelped and collapsed, dazed, hands scrabbling across the floor. Beth screamed. Maggie moved. She hit the panic button under the register and tossed a metal serving tray across the counter. Blind, but it landed with a satisfying crack against the Chaos Guy's shoulder. He shouted in pain, clutching the arm. As the shotgun slipped from his hands and skidded under a table, the leader saw the unraveling. "This is expletive done," he shouted. "Out, now!" He grabbed the shotgunner by the collar, dragging him toward the door. The nervous one stumbled after them, blood smearing his face where Frank's mug had hit. The bell above the door jingled again as the 3 men fled, clattering into a black SUV with mismatched plates. Tires squealed. The vehicle roared away, and then silence, except for Erin's breathing, shallow, quick, fading fast. Rex was back at her side before anyone else moved. The dog didn't pant, didn't bark, just leaned into her, muzzle nudging under her hand like he knew she was slipping. "Easy," she whispered, voice slurring. Maggie dropped to her knees beside them, towels in hand, face pale. "Where?" she asked, shaking. "Thigh, femoral," Erin rasped. "Hard pressure, now." Maggie obeyed, blood soaked through instantly. Erin's hands trembled, but she reached for Rex's collar, fingers hooking under it, like she was anchoring herself to the ground. "Don't let him go," she muttered. "He'll chase. Don't let him bite again. Not unless—" Her eyes rolled back. Beth's voice cracked over a 911 call in the background, rattling off gunshots, injury, address. Frank pulled the coat off his back and laid it gently over Erin. "She's bleeding out," Maggie said, her voice breaking. "I can't stop it!" Rex whimpered, just once, then went still again, watching the door, watching the world, waiting for what came next. Erin faded in and out during the ride. She heard sirens, heard voices, someone asking her name, someone else counting off vitals, pressure on her thigh, pain like a blade being twisted behind her knee. She didn't answer any of them, but when Rex tried to jump into the back of the ambulance, she found the strength to raise a hand. Barely. "Stay," she whispered. The dog stopped dead at the sound of it. EMS saw the flash of teeth, the readiness in his body. One of them moved to pull him back, but Erin shook her head. Barely a flick. "He's trained," she murmured. "He'll listen." The door slammed shut. The world became sirens and speed. At Onslow Memorial, the trauma team was already waiting. Paramedics barked status in shorthand. "GSW left thigh. Suspected femoral. BP dropping. Already 2 units in. Dog on scene. Non-aggressive. Unknown program." Inside the trauma bay, gloves snapped, monitors screamed, and someone cut through Erin's jeans in one smooth motion. Blood surged. The attending's voice went hard. "Get pressure now! We've got arterial spray! Let's move!" She coded once. For 40 seconds, the room locked into that rhythm of mechanical compressions and shouted vitals. But they brought her back. A vascular surgeon was scrubbed in within minutes. An orthopedic resident prepped for what looked like a shattered femur. Erin's body was going into shock again, but her vitals were holding. Barely. They worked fast. They worked hard. But they didn't know who they were working on. Not yet. Out in the admin hallway, a hospital security supervisor was filling out an incident log when a clerk from intake came jogging down the corridor, holding a leash. "This was with her," the clerk said, holding up the tag clip to Rex's collar. "I scanned the chip. It didn't pull local." The supervisor took the tag, read the number engraved on the titanium plate. It wasn't a pet registry code. It wasn't even from a civilian agency. It was a 5-digit unit reference followed by a program acronym he'd never seen on a kennel form. He tried to run it anyway. The alert popped within 6 seconds. Flagged asset, deep handle, refer to operator line. The screen didn't show a phone number, just a terminal code and an internal contact request line for Naval Special Warfare personnel. The supervisor stared at it, then glanced down the hall where the dog sat beside the nurse's station, quiet, unmoving, watching every door. "Where's the dog now?" he asked. "Hasn't left the spot since she came in, just sitting there." "Good," he said. "Don't move him. Don't let anyone touch him." "I need a phone." "What do I tell them?" He looked at the screen again, at the string of numbers stamped into the database. "You don't tell them anything," he said. "You let them figure it out." And with that, he made the call, not realizing it would reach an operations cell 600 miles away, not realizing the woman bleeding on his table had once been one of them. The ping reached Norfolk first, a secure inbox flagged by a dormant asset registry. A tech on rotation logged it, blinked at the code, and escalated to his supervisor, not because it was urgent, but because something about the prefix wasn't supposed to be active. By the time the message reached Commander Ray Danvers at Camp Lejeune, the situation was already moving. Danvers had served 15 years in Naval Special Warfare. He wasn't easily rattled. But when he opened the report, GSW trauma patient, Onslow Memorial ER, flagged K9 asset attached, he stopped mid-scroll. He knew that number, he knew the dog, and he knew her. He pulled up the archived roster, the one that hadn't been touched in 6 years. Special Operations K9 Medical Supports, Detached Element, Task Force 8-6. Civ name, Mercer, Aaron, rank, former, Luntimus, Veterinary Corps, Field Trauma Integration. Notes, dual qualified K9 Medical Plus Handler. Op Support, Status, Honorable Discharge, Medical, Non-Combat. The last entry in her file was dated 9 months after a field incident in northern Syria. Friendly fire, miscommunication, 2 handlers down. Aaron had stabilized both on site, one survived, one didn't. She left the program shortly after. Quietly, no fuss, no interviews, no post. Danvers remembered her because she never once hesitated during live field evaluations, because she never missed a K9 trauma drill, even when her knee was still in a brace, because she was the one who wrote the revised stabilization protocol they still used in theater. He read the rest of the report: civilian diner, armed robbery, GSW to femoral artery, protected a working dog, same dog she'd trained 4 years earlier. Of course it was him. Rec 7 had been pulled from the active program after a handler rotation injury. Too old, they said, too aggressive in the wrong hands. But Aaron hadn't let him wash out. She'd trained him for Tier 1 work. She'd taken shrapnel in her leg on a rooftop extraction because she'd refused to leave him behind. Now she'd taken a bullet for him in a diner in Swansboro, wearing jeans and a worn-out jacket instead of a uniform. Danvers stood, dialed directly to his command liaison. "Activate contact protocol." "For what asset?" He didn't pause. "Mercer." The voice on the other end was quiet for a beat. "Sir, she's not active." "She is now." Within the hour, task force comms lit up. It wasn't orders. It was recognition. Not just of the dog or the incident or the uniform she used to wear, but of what it meant for one of their own to act without hesitation, without backup, and without anyone knowing who she used to be. They weren't coming because she asked. They were coming because warriors never forget their own. Aaron's world was white walls, faint beeping, and the relentless ache of being alive. She came out of surgery 12 hours after the shooting. Multiple fractures, vascular repair, rods in her femur, 4 units of blood. The kind of operation you didn't bounce back from. Not quickly. Maybe not ever. She didn't ask questions when she woke up. Just blinked, checked for pain, found it, then focused on what mattered. "Rex," she whispered. A nurse leaned into view. He's okay. Stayed at the clinic last night. Animal control tried to take him, but someone higher up got involved. That was all Erin needed to hear. She drifted in and out for most of the day. No visitors. She didn't allow them. No family nearby. No close friends. That was the point of a life like hers. Solitary, clean, untouchable. Until it wasn't. At 6:07 the next morning, she woke to the sound of boots on asphalt. Not one pair, dozens. She blinked at the light filtering through her window, reached for the remote to raise the bed, pulled herself upright, every movement stiff with pain. Her crutches leaned against the wall. Someone had set them there without asking. Erin swung her legs down, gritted her teeth, moved. It took 6 minutes to get dressed. Loose sweats, hoodie, medical brace tight around her thigh. She barely made it to the front door of the rehab center's housing wing before the noise grew louder. Boots, in formation. She opened the door and stopped breathing. Down the street, they stood in silent rows. SEALs, Marines, active duty and retired. Dress uniforms pressed, medals gleaming in the early sun, patches she hadn't seen in years. Some were her age, some younger, a few old enough to remember Fallujah, 50 of them, maybe more. At the front, a man stepped forward. Danvers. His voice was steady, unraised. Still, every word landed like a hammer. "Lieutenant Mercer," he said, using a rank she hadn't heard in 6 years. "We're not here because of what you did yesterday. We're here because of who you've always been." She didn't reply. Didn't have to. Danvers handed her a folded flag. No ceremony. Just hands meeting hands. Then he nodded once to the man beside him, who stepped forward with a leash. Rex. Cleaned, calm, ears perked, eyes locked on her. Erin bent down, slowly, painfully, and reached for him. Rex pressed his head to her chest and let out a breath that sounded too much like relief. Danvers spoke once more. "He's yours, permanently, officially. We've already processed the transfer." "I didn't ask for that," she said, voice gravel thin. "No," he said. "You didn't." Then came the final moment. Danvers turned back to the formation, raised a hand. "Present, arms!" Dozens of men and women moved as one. The salute was silent thunder. Erin didn't return it. Couldn't. Her hand trembled too badly, but Rex stood by her side, posture proud, eyes forward. And in that moment, she knew. She hadn't just taken a bullet for a dog. She'd reminded an entire brotherhood what it meant to never leave one of their own behind. They didn't stay long. There were no press cameras, no speeches, no hashtags or ribbons or ceremonial photos, just quiet acknowledgments and sharp nods between people who'd lived lives the rest of the world didn't understand. Danvers met with the hospital administrator in a private room, arranged transport, set up liaison services, made sure Erin's next few weeks would include rehab, not red tape. No one asked her for a statement. No one asked if she was okay. They already knew the answer. When they left, one of the senior handlers stepped forward with a sealed envelope. Inside was a certificate stamped and signed, formally reclassifying Rex as active retired, reassigned to permanent civilian custodial care, Tier 1 exemption. The dog was hers, legally, permanently. No appeals, no recall clause. Erin didn't say thank you. She just took the papers, folded them, and tucked them under her arm like it was a discharge order. One of the younger SEALs stayed behind as the formation marched off. He was maybe 22, maybe less, eyes sharp, uniform still stiff at the seams. He didn't speak right away. Then, "Ma'am, we studied your stabilizer protocol at Coronado. Every combat medic still uses it." Erin blinked. "I wrote that on a whiteboard during a sandstorm in Jordan." He smiled. "Doesn't matter. It still saves lives." He saluted. She didn't return it, but she nodded. That was enough. 2 weeks later, Erin limped through the front door of her clinic. Rex padded beside her, gait smooth, steps soundless. The brace on her leg was thick, unforgiving. She hated it. but the rods in her femur didn't care about her preferences. Jenna stood frozen in the hallway. "You're back?" Aaron nodded. "I rescheduled your whole month. I'll sit. You run the floor." Jenna looked at Rex. "And him?" "He's employee of the month," Aaron said flatly. "Didn't you see the memo?" The staff laughed, nervously at first, then for real. Rex took his usual position under Aaron's desk and laid his head on his paws. He watched the door. He always would. Outside, a new flag hung from the pole beside the clinic's old weathered sign. It wasn't big, just a quiet indicator, a folded corner sewn in black, and a line of embroidered initials. K9, Rex 7 Tier 1, retired, never out of the fight. Aaron didn't mention it, didn't talk about the battalion, didn't tell the staff what the dog had once done or who she had once been. She just worked. With purpose. With presence. With one hand always resting gently near the side of a dog that had once followed orders behind enemy lines. And who now, at last, followed her home. Would you risk your life to protect a working dog like Rex? Do you think people like Aaron ever really retire? Or do they just change uniforms? And should elite units quietly show up when one of their own makes a move like that? Tell me what you think in the comments. I read everyone. If you found this story worth your time, hit the like button, subscribe for more real-world stories like this, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss what's next. Share this video with someone who still believes loyalty means something. And while you're here, click one of these other stories on your screen now. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time with something brand new.